So they've made some moves this offseason. It looks like they're going to be bringing back Daniel Tice. They obviously made a few picks in the draft as well, but the big move was for them to get Walker. And Kemba is coming. He's going to replace Irving. And it's a very interesting fit here, Jason. And I wanted to get your thoughts because to me it feels like this is a case of Boston maybe talking themselves into it a little too much in the sense that Kyrie Irving is just I love Kemba Walker. He's one of my favorite players in the league, Jason. I have followed him since UConn. He was my favorite player in college, and he's been one of my favorite players in the NBA since the moment he got to the league. He is fearless. He has improved every single season he's been in the league, which is not something that everyone can say. He is so much fun. He's a great guy, does a lot of stuff for the community back in New York. So I have nothing but love. But Jason, just I don't get the position that he's on the same level as Irving. I mean, I don't see it. I'm not there. I'm not there for that. I can't see it. I do wonder, however, Jason, will he be a better fit for what Boston wants to do, and will he be able to kind of assume that role better where he can maybe be a little bit more of a complementary player for these young guys?
So I'll say this about Kemba Walker. He's an all-star. I think if you rank the tiers of point guards in the NBA, tier 1, Kyrie, Steph, Westbrook, Lillard, of course. I mean, can you think of anyone else? Just real quick.
In my opinion, it's Harden and Curry at the top, and they're their own.
Well, Harden's a shooting guard.
I mean, he plays point guard on.
I know, but I'm saying just hear me out for a sec. So those 4 guys. Then you have your tier 2 with Chris Paul, D'Angelo Russell, Kemba Walker. I think Kemba Walker is at the top of tier 2 when it comes to the class of NBA point guards. So he might end up being a better system fit for Brad Stevens. I mean, the Celtics essentially drafted a bunch of guys and replaced Kyrie Irving and Al Horford with Kemba Walker and Enes Kanter. Now, the Celtics could still contend and be a top 4 seed in the East if Gordon Hayward continues to get healthy and Brown and Tatum take the next step. But losing Horford hurts. So I think the Celtics don't have a championship window right now. But I think with Kemba at the helm, they could be a very fun team to watch.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, you're gonna hear me say this for a lot of different teams. Here's what it's going to come down to, Jason, and I hate to oversimplify, but there's times where you oversimplify because it really is just pretty much that simple. This team will be as good as Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum make them. And that's the entire season. We can do as much as we want. We can talk about this, that, the third thing. If those two perform the way that they can, this team will be a borderline contender in the East. If they do not, this team, it doesn't matter how good Kemba Walker is, they just don't have it. They don't have enough to get there, Jason. And that's where it comes down to. I think for Walker, he's a good closer. I still feel like, to me, there's the Harden and Curry tier of point guards. If you want to take Harden out and say he's not there, then I put Curry on his own tier. And then right under him, I have Lillard. Lillard and Irving are kind of in their own tier to me. And then Walker's right below that.
So you'd rather have Kemba Walker than Russell Westbrook on your team?
Yes. I mean, at this stage, yeah. Because, I mean, Westbrook, there's a lot that he takes off the table at this point in his career. You need a very particular type of player. And that's not to say that Russell Westbrook isn't good, but you need a very particular type of player to play alongside Westbrook. There's a lot of guys who just won't fit with the way that Westbrook plays. And I don't think that he has the versatility that Kemba Walker does. Kemba Walker can play in a lot of different systems. But that said, I think Westbrook's in that same tier. So I don't think it's a huge gap. I think Walker's a better scorer. He's a better shooter. And he's a better pick and roll player. Where I think Westbrook is a much better rebounder, better kind of creator, and he's better at getting to the rim. So, I mean, those are valuable, but the shooting has become such a big part of the NBA, and that lack of versatility, I think is very damaging. And frankly, the other thing that separates those guys is that as much as, Steph Curry is very much maligned for his defense, out of the guys we just named, he's the best defender, night in and night out. I mean, he gets attacked in the playoffs, but he's actually become a much better defender, and the numbers bear this out.
Because he gets steals.
He does, but he's also just become a better team defender. I mean, if you put him on an island, sure, but these other guys that we're talking about, Westbrook, Irving, and Westbrook and Harden, are notorious for getting back cut, letting wide open layups, getting beaten off the dribble. Harden's gotten a lot better, and his post defense is really, actually at this point, pretty darn good. So I'm not going to take away that. And Lillard, similar to Curry, has gotten to be a better positional defender. But at any rate, I think that's the question with Walker, is that will, in this case, fit trump talent? I think it's going to be interesting. I think the Al Horford loss is going to really hurt them, Jason. I think that's going to really hurt more than they think, because the dirty secret of the Celtics, Jason, is that while Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are supposed to be this phenomenal defensive tandem on the wing, they were not as good as advertised last year. They were not. They did not play up to their potential. And Jason Tatum in particular was very disappointing in a number of ways, Jason, but one of the big ones was his defense was suboptimal at best. I mean, he was a below average defender, and for a guy with his tools, that's just not acceptable. And if that doesn't change, I will say two things. One, the entire trajectory of the Celtics changes, but two, his career trajectory changes, because if he can't be a defender of that caliber, he's just not that valuable. A jump shooting wing who can't play defense is Andrew Wiggins. That's what you're getting. You're getting a better shooting Andrew Wiggins if that's the case. And no one's lining up to get that guy. If he displays the defense that he showed and his ability to get to the rim, he's a special player. If he can't do that this year, Jason, I think this is a guy who's going to end up being a one-year wonder a little bit. I mean, similar to Tyreek Evans, where we saw him in his first year, and then afterwards he trailed off. I mean, Tatum just wasn't that great this year, and if he can't step it up on defense, the Celtics are really in trouble.
Well, we have so much time to get to all that. I think the focus now is like the winners and losers of free agency. So about Kemba Walker, he had to get out of Charlotte. They were going nowhere. I think part of him probably feels bad about leaving. But he goes to the Celtics. So we know the Nets are clear winners here in free agency. Where do we put the Celtics? Because they lose two All-Stars. They gain an All-Star and a big man who's capable of putting up numbers. So what category would you put them in?
I think that they're the hardest to peg right now, because we really have to see what we get from Tatum. I mean, they're certainly not in the top tier. I mean, Milwaukee right now is probably, I think you have to give them the favorite title just because of what they did this year. They were a 60-win team whose underlying numbers were even better. And the Sixers, the moves that they've made, I mean, why don't we talk a little bit about the Sixers as we kind of wrap up the Celtics? I mean, I think the Celtics are a tier below that, because the Sixers are another team that really made moves, and I think that they're a big winner, Jason. I want to get your thoughts, but obviously a few big moves here. They did the sign and trade with Jimmy Butler. They get Al Horford. They lose Redick. They keep Tobias Harris. I mean, what did you think of the moves that they made, and do you think that they ended up on top of this, or did they get worse?
I'll put them in the winners category. I mean, their starting lineup will be the biggest in the NBA when you have Ben Simmons, who's on the cusp of a huge max deal to stay in Philly, or it's more of an extension. Josh Richardson, who they get from Miami in what's going to amount to be the crazy 4-team trade with Portland and Hassan Whiteside going and the Mavericks getting involved. I don't know how that's going to be broken down. But then you have Tobias Harris, who they re-signed, who now has to play the 3. They shock everyone by signing Al Horford and then Embiid in the middle. So that's a big lineup. My concern with Philly is depth. They bring back James Ennis. They bring back Mike Scott, but they still need guard depth. But I kind of like what the Sixers are doing. I mean, the fact that they get Tobias Harris right away to commit they didn't want to pay Jimmy Butler. I think of the two, Harris was the smarter one to keep. I think that he'll have a little bit more of an extension on his career. Butler's known to be injury prone, to be more of a me guy. And they bring in the perfect teammate in Al Horford to complement all that. The Bucks, everyone's talking about what they're doing, and we'll obviously talk about their moves. But if the Raptors lose Kawhi, the Sixers could be a favorite in the East. Right up there with Milwaukee because of their starting lineup, but they do need more depth. But that Horford signing, man, that came out of nowhere.
I think that the thing I really liked about this is, so I ran some numbers here because I kept hearing people say, they're losing these guys, they're getting Horford, they're losing a lot of shooting. And so I went and I ran the numbers over the past 4 years. And the reason I chose 4 years, Jason, was that Al Horford really didn't start shooting threes until about 4 years ago. So his numbers were very small sample size. So it wasn't really reliable to look. So once he started shooting threes, I pulled his numbers, the total number of attempts, and then I put it against his attempts per game versus his makes per game to get his percentage. Over the past 4 years, he shot 37.5%, Jason. And that's about 5 a game, or 5 out of 13, as a total. I then looked over at Jimmy Butler, who's obviously the big guy that they're losing on the perimeter. And over that same time frame, Butler took about the same number of shots, made less, and shot about 35%. And I think that what this shows is that I think a lot of people think they're losing shooting. I think they're actually gaining a few things here, Jason. And I really like that part of the move in the sense that Horford is a much better defender at this stage of his career, I think, than Butler. Butler has been known as a great two-way player, but he's kind of slipped on that end the past couple seasons. He's not at the same level he was, whereas Horford is very good positionally. He can switch, he can defend the rim, he can defend a really wide variety of players, and that's really, really valuable. And there's one other thing I want to talk about, which is besides the shooting, besides that defensive versatility, even besides the passing, where he's one of the better passing big men in the league, Jason, he gives the Sixers something that is very, very valuable but harder to quantify. And that is that he gives them the ability to utilize that Kawhi Leonard load management with Joel Embiid. Because now, Jason, they have a real starting center. And when you talk about those other moves that they made, one of the things that you start to notice with what the Sixers have done, and I think this is very shrewd by Elton Brand, they have put together a team where they can easily let Embiid sit out a few games. And I'm not going to be surprised at all if they put him on that Kawhi Leonard, that 60-game plan for this year, and really give him lots of rest because Horford can fill in on those other games. They can easily slide Tobias Harris up to the 4. They can fill in the rest of the gaps. Jason Richardson will play. The big thing they need at this point, Jason, is I think they need a little bit more depth at the guard position. I think they're in pretty good shape, the rest of their roster, but I think they need another guard or two to really fill it out. I don't know that, Zaire Smith, I'm not sure he's the answer. I think they got back Shake Milton. I don't think those guys are the answer. I think they need to get someone like a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, someone like that. But I think that they're right there as favorites in the East. I think them and the Bucks are really, really, really good coming into the season. And look out for the Sixers, Jason. Here's my kind of bold prediction. Look out for the Sixers to be the best defensive team in the NBA next year.
Wait, were you going to give more numbers? I'm sorry.
I mean, if you want some numbers, I can give you a few numbers. I can list the height of their starting lineup next year.
Oh, they're huge.
Al Horford is 6'10", Joel Embiid 7 foot. You've got a guy like Ben Simmons who's 6'10". You're gonna have Josh Richardson who's 6'6", and then you're gonna have Tobias Harris who is, I believe, also 6'9", 6'10". So, I mean, they're gonna wreak havoc. They're gonna be unbelievable on defense. All of those guys. Tobias Harris is the worst defender of the bunch, and he's an above-average defender. So, when you look at that, I mean, they're gonna be really good on that end. And I think that's going to really propel them. I wouldn't be surprised if they win more games than they did last year.
Yeah, it could happen. So just to recap, we have the Nets' obvious winners. We have the Sixers as winners. We